Seki is a lazy loser who always does random stuff in class, and his life becomes interesting when Rumi, a girl who can't mind her own damn business, is seated next to him. Then, like any other day, Rumi looks to her side to see Seki doing random in class. In the first period, while the teacher, Adachi, is explaining why Boku no Pico is a historical masterpiece, Rumi watches Seki aligning two erasers in precision to create something. But then he puts his hand in his bag and pulls out a crapload of erasers, making Rumi think this guy has Doraemon's pouch for a bag. Rumi tries to convince him to knock it off out of fear that Adachi will scold them and make them watch Boku no Pico on repeat, but Seki tells her to shut her trap, and it annoys Rumi. Seki continues what he's doing, and Rumi realizes that Seki is making dominoes. Then Seki starts making a weird-looking seesaw, distracting Rumi. Suddenly, Adachi tells Rumi to read the next part and screams at her when she doesn't pay attention. Seki gets shocked also, and an eraser slips from his hand and drops on his dominoes, almost ruining it, but Seki manages to stop it. Seki looks at Rumi with disgust on his face, but she refuses to take the disrespect and silently cusses him out, calling him a donkey's dingus in Russian. Shortly after, she looks at Seki again and realizes that this idiot is the new Einstein after he created an absolute monster of a domino chain. He pulls a blender and reveals a firework as the climax of the domino, and Rumi starts panicking, trying to get Seki to call off his creation. Seki doesn't care and starts his domino, creating the most dramatic domino chain drop in human history, turning on a curve like Tokyo Drift, going up the stairs of heaven and heading toward the firework to detonate it, but nothing happens. Rumi is relieved to see that the firework is just in his head, but suddenly Adachi scolds her and she tries to save herself by snitching on Seki. But he quickly hides the evidence and makes it look like Rumi is tweaking off the henny. In the second period, Rumi looks to Seki again, who pulls out a box, and at first, she thinks he brought himself the party powder, but it turns out to be the game of shogi, which disappointed her as she wanted to take a sniff. Seki starts setting out the game, and it annoys Rumi that he vandalizes school property for his game. Then he starts playing the most intense game of shogi, and at his first turn, he makes too much noise, taking everyone by surprise, but nobody knows it's him. Rumi tries to get him to pay attention in class, but realizes he's playing shogi like a numbskull, as if it's some cheesy C-grade soap opera, where one of his pawns betrayed his own king. He changes one of the pawns into the king in some groundbreaking Game of Thrones-esque move. Seki starts tapping the pawn next to the new king and suddenly turns all the pawns against the new king, making the plot twist of the ages that even Rumi is now invested in watching. However, in a quick turn of events, Seki presses a button and yeets two of his pawns into a trap on some cheesy bullshit plot development, while Seki grins like an idiot. Now, all the pawns obey the new king out of fear of his tyrant-like leadership. Suddenly, the enemy pawns surround them, not caring anymore if this is a game of shogi or Monopoly, and they move closer to the new king. But then, the new king slides himself out of there, saying adios to his bitch-ass pawns, leaving them in chaos and without a king. The pawns are about to get slaughtered, but by the power of friendship, another pawn pulls up and defeats all the enemies, and that pawn is the wounded old king, showing these fools who their daddy is. Rumi starts tearing up seeing the wounded king return, and she cries when the king tumbles over and dies. Suddenly, the new king shows up and starts pissing on the old king's grave, but Rumi has enough of this nonsense, and uses her eraser to yeet the new king out of existence. Seki is in shock at what just happened, and looks at Rumi with anger, but Rumi pretends that she didn't do anything. Days later, Rumi looks at Seki, and to her surprise, he is actually studying, but after further inspection, he's wiping his table. She's confused about why he's wiping his table, but also feels that it's good that he cares about his desk. Then, Seki puts his hand inside his bag and pulls out a crap load of polishing tools. Seki starts by spreading white goo on his table, making Rumi curious about how long it takes him to jizz out those white creams. Then Seki starts scraping the creams onto the table, filling out the cracks, and the creamy white stuff flies at her and some random NPC in front of him. Then, Seki pulls out his wax and starts polishing the table until the desk is golden and shiny, capable of blinding someone's eye. Seki feels happy with his newly polished desk and sits there in peace. Shortly after, Seki looks at Rumi with evil intentions, and she realizes that he wants to polish her desk. She tells him no and to go and touch grass, so he starts begging her to let him polish her desk, and he offers a coin, but she tells him that she's not some cheapskate who can be bought. After seeing her determination to reject him, Seki starts wiping his desk. making an annoying noise and looking like he's bored, which makes Rumi feel guilty. In the end, Rumi folds and gives him her pencil case for him to polish, and he gladly accepts it. Seki starts wiping intensely and shows how proud he is of his work to Rumi, and she feels that he's like a baby wanting to be praised by his mommy. Then, Seki is done and hands the pencil case back to Rumi, who is impressed by how shiny her pencil case is now. Suddenly, she gets electrocuted by her pencil case, making her hair look like Mob in his full form, and realizes she should never be nice to Seki ever again, who is also facing the same fate. Later, Seki rummages around his bag and pulls out wooden bowls, confusing Rumi about what he's doing this time. He opens the bowls, and from them, he takes out small black and white stones, and Rumi realizes it's a game of Go. Seki starts setting up the Go stones, but Rumi doesn't understand the game, so she chooses to ignore it. Later, Seki starts getting more intense with his game, and Rumi can't help but pay attention, and it shocks her to see that Seki just made a bear and bunny out of the stones. She wonders how many times did Seki got dropped as a kid for playing Go like this, but suddenly the stones start moving, and the bear punches the bunny. Because she doesn't know the rules, Rumi thinks this is how someone plays Go. Hence, she starts imagining the masters of the game playing like this, with a bunny and bear fighting like they're Dragon Ball characters. But she quickly realizes that that is not the case, and Seki is just a special kind of idiot. The teacher starts lecturing and Rumi tries to pay attention, but can't, and ends up copying the battle in her notebooks. Rumi starts pouting, blaming him for what happened, but then she sees the board and realizes that it's now messy. Seki starts releasing his +1 million aura and starts playing intensely again, putting stones in their places and creating his masterpiece, a pimped-out bunny with hip glasses. It amazes Rumi how weird it has become, so she tries to focus on her studies instead. However, Seki starts getting more intense, and Rumi can't help but see what he's doing and finds that there are now two pimped-out bunnies fighting with opposite colors. She starts imagining the white bunny having a darker version of itself like it's Goku Black, and she roots for the white bunny to win the fight while also being completely invested in the fight. Suddenly, Adachi scolds her and she tries to stitch again, but Seki already hides the evidence, making Rumi look stupid. She refuses to give up and shows Adachi her notebook where the fight happened as proof, but ends up looking like an idiot while Seki sits there like a complete Chad. During science class, while the other students are busy trying to study, Rumi notices that Seki pulls out a chisel and carves his name into an eraser. He then pulls out a stamp pad and sticks the eraser on it, making an eraser stamp. Seeing this nonsense, Rumi feels that Seki needs to feel the touch of a woman to stop doing it and eat a sticker. But suddenly, Seki hides his eraser stamp, and Rumi wonders why. She realizes that Yuzawa is next to him, making Seki secretive about his eraser stamp, and Rumi is glad that Yuzawa is making this idiot behave. Then, Seki continues carving something, and Rumi doesn't know what. But after further investigation, she realizes that the eraser is now thin, turning into a seal stamp. After Seki finishes his newly made seal, he realizes that his chisel is gone and that Yuzawa is checking out his pencil case and is confused about what kind of idiot brings a chisel to school. It amazes Rumi how bold Yuzawa is, messing with the almighty Sigma Seki. But then Yuzawa sees the stamp and starts playing with it, using Seki as his little toy. However, Yuzawa gets quickly bored and averts his attention elsewhere, while Seki is stuck with dirty hands. Seki then pulls out another eraser while getting Rumi's curiosity, and he opens it like a case, making it a case for his seal. He then closes the case and makes it look like a normal eraser like some shit James Bond would do. Suddenly the teacher says that he's erasing his blackboard and both Rumi and Yuzawa quickly take notes of what's there. Then, Yuzawa makes a mistake in writing, but he forgets to bring his eraser, and he sees his next-door neighbor and notices Seki with an eraser. In a dramatic slow-mo of the most epic scene in history, Yuzawa takes the eraser case off Seki's hand to borrow it, making Seki and Rumi panic and destroys Seki's creation to pieces. Yuzawa thinks it just breaks easily and eats it away, causing Seki's soul to fly out to play ball with Kobe. The next day, the homeroom teacher announces that there will be a disaster drill for the students to participate in. However, Seki doesn't care and plays with his Optimus Prime toy. Rumi wishes that Seki would put his toy away out of fear that the teacher will scream at him. But from out of nowhere, Seki starts playing with his toys like it's The Sims with cracked-out mod, where Autobots clap each other's cheeks. Suddenly, the disaster drill starts with an earthquake, and every student gets under the table apart from Seki, who's posing like he's from a romance anime. Rumi is annoyed seeing this numbskull not being serious, but looks down to see the toys taking the drills seriously. Then, all the students go to the courtyard to practice evacuation, and while Rumi notices that Seki doesn't care, the robots do, as the whole bot family is ready to evacuate like some kaiju is attacking, and Rumi is impressed. Then in the courtyard, while the teacher is talking, Seki still doesn't care, but his robots do while sitting peacefully. However, Seki starts tweaking and accidentally kicks the robots, dropping them dead, and that makes Rumi angry. Suddenly, the robots are gone and Seki is confused about where they went, but they end up in Rumi's arms, who uses her Heiki and tells Seki's that she is their mama now, causing Seki to feel their intense pressure and give up. Afterward, under Rumi's supervision, the robots can live happily in peace, where the kid studies and Optimus can clap Mamabot's metal cheeks without any interruption. Seki keeps staring at his old robots, but Rumi stares him down, telling him he's trash, making him regret taking the happy robot family for granted. Days later in class, Rumi notices that paper notes are being passed around the class to students' tables, where one girl even gets invited for some cheeks clapping. She looks at Seka, who also has a note, and it shocks Rumi to see how many notes he holds. Then, Seki pulls out a tool from Go-Go Gadget and starts stamping the notes one by one, confusing Rumi. He then eats a note to Rumi, sent by her friend, and inside it her friend, Haruno, informs Rumi that Seki has started a side hustle acting as a post office to secure the bag. Instead of feeling proud, Rumi feels annoyed that Seki is doing another shenanigan, putting the I in idiot. Then, she realizes that she needs to respond to Haruno's letter, so Rumi rips up a paper but starts writing to Seki, telling him to get a real job. She hands it to him, but he rejects her, telling her she needs to make it smaller to fit the size regulations. Even while feeling annoyed by his rules, Rumi folds the paper into regulations and shows it to him, but then he shows her a form, asking her when she wants her note to be sent. Even with all the nonsense, Rumi follows what he asks and fills out the form accordingly. But when all the forms are filled, Seki's post office is already closed. Rumi is angry at this cheesy nonsense and calls him a chika bliyat, Russian for mofo, but looks down and sees that she can still send her note through a mailbox that just spawned from out of nowhere. Instead of feeling pissed, Rumi admits that it's impressive, so she waits for the teacher to get distracted and tries to put the letter in the mailbox, but she struggles to put it in while her chair is close to falling. She puts it in and falls from her chair, getting everyone's attention, but she manages to recover and saves herself from a scolding. After everything that happened, Rumi looks at Seki, hoping he'll now send her note, but even after the school is over, Seki doesn't send her note while she's still there, looking like she's angry and constipated. So she does it herself, putting a note in a locker. But another student sees her and thinks that Rumi is leaving a love letter to someone, starting a strange rumor. Days later, while the NPC teacher is teaching, Rumi looks at Seki and sees him playing shogi again. But after already seeing his last game, she's not worried about getting distracted. However, Rumi realizes that Seki is playing another weird game where one pawn goes against a whole army, and she wonders what the one pawn did wrong to get jumped like this. Seki pulls out a princess pawn that shouldn't exist and puts it next to the lonely pawn. And there, Rumi realizes that this just turned into a Hollywood movie scenario where the princess falls in love with a soldier and the kingdom is against their forbidden love because the king wants to clap the princess' cheeks. Seeing this development, Rumi wants to see fully what happens next, and Seki starts his game where the soldiers beat up the pawn for taking away the princess from the kingdom. Rumi starts panicking, but then the two pawns flip, showing that they're now husband and wife, and Rumi is more invested than ever. With the power of plot armor on his side, the husband wipes out the soldiers like he's Madara in the Ninja War. But the husband suddenly stops and sees that the princess is now captured. Unable to do anything, the soldiers surround and torture the husband while the princess watches. Rumi starts crying, not wanting to see the massacre. But she looks under her desk and sees an enemy pawn who turns out to be the husband's father. She realizes that the father was brainwashed to fight his own son, but seeing his son get tortured woke him up, so Rumi wants to eat the father to save his son, but Seki notices and blocks the path with his notebook. Suddenly, the teacher asks Seki to read the next part, and Rumi sees it as her chance for the father to save his son after the teacher, who acts as a higher power, helped them. Seki lifts his notebook, but spawns a wall out of nowhere that he goes behind the notebook quietly. In with the wall, Rumi uses the power of Dominic Toretto and yeets the father into the wall, breaking it, and saves the husband so he can be with his wife in the name of family. At the next class period, Rumi looks at Seki and notices that he is now knitting in the middle of class, slowly turning into everyone's grandma. However, Rumi stares while judging him heavily as she has a grade 2 certification in knitting with the skills of a knitting coach. Rumi has been knitting since she came out of her mama and continued to practice her knitting skills by creating various gifts for her friends and family to the point she became a human on par with a knitting machine. Seeing Seki knitting in class, Rumi feels disgusted, thinking that Seki doesn't have respect for the art of knitting. Just then, Rumi sees Seki's hand moving faster than what a regular beginner could do, and while Rumi is a little impressed, Seki's speed is still basic as what's important is actually the precision and variation, called crocheting. However, Rumi notices that what Seki is crocheting is small and it can't be any kind of clothing, but then she sees a stuffing beside him and she thinks that what he's creating is a stuffed toy, potentially a frog. Suddenly, Seki switches hands and reveals that he's using an expert-level crochet hook, impressing Rumi with how well-versed Seki is in knitting. But she still doubts that he knows what he's doing. She knows that knitting has different tools that serve different purposes, and that the tools that Seki is currently using are used for thicker stitches that are best suited for clothing items like hats and sweaters, unlike whatever blasphemy Seki is creating. However, Seki finishes his creation and it turns out to be a stuffed cactus, so Rumi looks down on it, calling it a failed product, but deep down, she can't stop looking at it with something resonating in her heart. She imagines the desert and far in the distance, the cactus is standing tall even with the heat, flexing how tough and majestic it is. Rumi starts tweaking about how amazing the texture of the cactus is, so she admits defeat to Seki, acknowledging how amazing his toy cactus is, and apologizes for thinking he's trash before begging him to let her hug his cactus. Seeing this crazy Seki refuses and starts dismantling his toy cactus strand by strand until it becomes regular strings to hide the evidence. Rumi is in shock at what just happened and uses her aura to force Seki to make another one, but Seki gets scared and actually studies for once to avoid her gaze. The next day, they study art class, and while Rumi is studying, Seki is playing around, but behind them, a new foe has appeared in the form of Goto, who admires Rumi and wants to be her friend. However, she never talked to her, and today she wants to. Meanwhile, Seki is playing Minuscule golf on his table, using the holes on his desk, but Rumi underestimates him. He lines up a shot and flushes it into the hole like prime Tiger Woods, shocking Rumi. Seki lines up another shot with his eyes intensely aiming at the hole, and he reminds Rumi of a pro golfer on the court. Meanwhile, Goto watches Rumi intently, thinking she's stalking Seki and having the hots for him due to that one stupid rumor, so Goto continues watching them. And while Goto wants to help her ship sail, she also feels it's not her place in others' relationships. Then, Seki lines up another shot and aims it at Rumi because the hole is right next to her. Rumi feels that it's her space, and while Seki carries the power of plot armor with him, she feels that he can't get another hole in one. Behind them, Goto watches the two staring at each other and starts tweaking, thinking that they are secretly clapping cheeks and keeping it a secret from everybody. Suddenly, the teacher hands out papers, and while at it, Seki takes his shot for the hole in one, but Rumi accidentally touches the ball while passing the papers to Goto, and she realizes she screwed up. Rumi looks over at Seki, and he's there pouting like he's on his period, so she apologizes to him, but Goto, who watches everything, thinks that they're fighting because Rumi arrived too quickly the other night, leaving Seki high and dry. Goto starts imagining them living together and starts malfunctioning by herself, thinking about what they like to do together. Suddenly, Seki pulls up a mini golf red flag, and while Rumi thinks that Seki wants her to hold it for him to play, Goto has other ideas as she thinks it's some degenerate flag they use to communicate. Then Seki goes under the table to look for the previous ball, and when Rumi helps him, Goto thinks they're playing tongue twister with each other while she loses her mind. During break time, Goto confronts Rumi and scolds her for playing hide the pickle with Seki. But Rumi agrees as she thinks Goto is talking about Seki's playful behavior. Rumi starts venting about how Seki refuses to stop doing it in class, and Goto misunderstands and imagines that Seki is the ultimate cheek clapper. Goto states that she supports Rumi, and Rumi tells her she wants to be friends with her. And while Goto is happy to hear that, she also feels that Rumi is a huge degenerate for doing it in class. The next class period, the teacher starts teaching and Rumi realizes that she already mastered what is being taught. She looks to her side, sees Seki playing with mini teddy bear, thinks it's adorable, and decides that she's just gonna watch and play. Seki pulls out a mini tent, a mini backpack, and a mini binocular for the bear to camp, while Rumi is drooling at how cute it is, wishing that Seki had done this sooner. However, Seki has an intense glare on him, waking up Rumi from her delulu and wondering what is going on. Suddenly, Rumi realizes another bear is climbing on Maida's back and she starts panicking as Maida is known to be scary, so she tries to get Seki to stop the bear from climbing. Then the bear starts climbing up by itself, while being pulled by a string gently, and Rumi realizes that if Seku pulls too hard, Maida will notice. Maida starts moving aggressively and the bear starts shaking on its string like he's climbing a real mountain, and on the verge of death. At the top, the bear stops, and Rumi realizes it's Maida's shirt collar, stopping the bear like a mountain's overhang. Suddenly, Maida feels something on his collar and almost takes off the string, but his movement helps the bear reach the top. The bear continues its climb and almost reaches the peak of the mountain in the most intense shit. After the bear gets there, the bear pulls up the Japanese flag and they celebrate its success, but Maida starts moving and yeets the bear out of the window and into his death. The two of them start panicking and look out to see if the bear survives, and Seki starts pulling on the string and saves the bear. After everything that happened, Seki still wants more and tries to put the string on Maida again for round 2, but Maida turns around, scaring Seki like a little dog. Rumi laughs at Seki, calling him but Maida stares at her too, scaring Rumi off with his intense aura, thinking she's involved. Seki tries again with a devious smile on his face, but Maida turns around again, scaring them both. The next class period, Seki pulls out a remote-controlled car, and it annoys Rumi that he's starting another shenanigan and not being able to just focus and study. However, Seki is writing on his paper, and it shocks Rumi that he's actually studying. But after further inspection, Seki is actually studying traffic laws so he can operate the toy car. After studying, Seki pulls out a miniature driving school so he can drive his car and get a license. Rumi is disgusted with how Seki can get away with this and how blind the NPC teachers are, so she takes the responsibility of monitoring Seki. And he takes a long time before starting the car as he is making sure the car is safe, which is in the traffic laws. After Seki makes sure it's safe, he starts driving the car slowly and safely, following traffic laws and making turns slowly, also following the traffic laws. However, in an L-turn, Seki drives on the curb and starts panicking out of fear of the traffic gods, but he reverses the car back to the road, following the laws. Rumi watches in confusion, wondering why Seki is driving the car like this, and thinking that he should just go full GTA with it. Then, Seki continues driving like a grandma up a hill, but the car does a backflip and tumbles down the hill, making Seki depressed and putting the whole game away. The next day, Seki tries again for the sake of his driving license, and it's a rare sight to see him play the same thing twice. Rumi notices Seki is covered in band-aids after practicing all night and realizes that just got real. Seki drives his car to the hill again for a rematch, and this time he manages to get over it without any trouble and reaches the checkpoint safely. Then, Seki smiles and starts writing something on paper, and Rumi wonders what's he up to now, and it turns out to be a license he has prepared for himself. He smiles and raises his hand as a sign of success, but the teacher takes it as a sign that he wants to solve a question in front of the class. Seki starts panicking and looks at Rumi, begging for an answer, but Rumi tells him to eat dirt, so Seki offers her a new license for the answer, and Rumi folds, wanting to give him the answer. However, Seki tells her to take the driving test to get the license, but after remembering the nonsense cheese Seki just did, Rumi declines his offer, leaving Seki screwed over. Afterward, at swimming class, the teacher instructs the students to learn how to do chest compressions. Uzawa jokes around about kissing each other to save the homies, but the teacher scolds them to not mess around. Seeing these donuts fooling around reminds Rumi of Seki, and she sees him exactly how she expected, just goofing around. Rumi internally starts cussing him out but stops when she sees the robot family behind him, taking things seriously. Rumi wonders how Seki manages to bring his toy robots in, but she doesn't care after seeing how the robots take the lesson seriously, so Rumi tells the robots to do their best. After the lesson is done, the teacher tells the students they have free time to use the pool however they want. The students waste no time jumping in the pool, and Hashino invites Rumi to jump in, but she tells her to go ahead as she wants to find the robots. She sees Seki playing around, and she can't believe that he doesn't care about his metal babies, leaving them stranded. Rumi feels that Seki doesn't deserve the free time as only the hard worker deserves to get it. Then, Rumi takes the robots and plans to take them somewhere chill, so she takes them to relax on a beach chair, enjoying their reward before saying her goodbyes and leaving them. However, Yuzawa finds the robots, and even with Rumi pleading to him, Yuzawa starts spinning like a beyblade and yeets the robot baby into the pool, not caring if the little chick can swim. Rumi starts panicking and tries to find the baby, and after she finds it, she wants to save him, but Maida swims past like a dolphin on steroids, causing the baby to get carried by the wave. Rumi goes to look for him again and starts imagining the baby cosplaying Tom Hanks in Castaway being lost in the pool. Suddenly, Goto calls up Rumi, and the baby bot is stuck in her hair like a parasite. Rumi tells Goto to stay still, and Rumi majestically jumps into the pool to get to Goto. However, Seki walks past and notices his baby bot on Goto, and when Rumi reaches Goto, the baby bot is already gone, causing Rumi to panic, thinking the baby got swallowed by her hair. Meanwhile, Seki has returned the baby to his family and plays with it. Yuzawa walks past, and Seki hides the bots from him. Later, the free time is up, and even though her friends are calling for her, Rumi refuses to leave the pool, still looking for the baby. Lunchtime, Seki and Rumi both join their friends to eat, and while Rumi enjoys her food, she looks over at Seki after his friends praise his lunch and sees his amazing lunchbox, realizing that Gordon Ramsay is his daddy. Rumi sees his homemade fried octopus wiener and starts geeking over it, but Seki doesn't care and bites its head off, traumatizing Rumi like he's a hungry beast, and it makes Rumi wonder why Seki seems so hateful while eating his food. Rumi's friend asks her if she's okay, and it wakes up Rumi to stop caring about how Seki eats, but she can and looks again to see loads of the octopus wieners in his lunchbox. Suddenly, Seki struggles to eat, and Rumi looks at his lunchbox and sees that the octopuses are teaming up and resisting to stop Seki from eating them. So Seki goes aggressive and stabs 3 at the same time before savagely munching on them, and Seki reminds Rumi of a titan from a trash show, eating the octopus's village. However, the octopus fights back by sending its strongest wiener, looking like Julius Caesar who's protecting his city, and it gives Rumi hope that the octopus will survive, but Seki just eats it normally, destroying Rumi's expectations. Suddenly, Seki starts choking on the food, while Rumi smiles deviously and her friends notice her like that, making Rumi self-conscious. They start talking about her smile, telling Rumi how it will scare dudes away, and Rumi realizes that paying attention to Seki does more harm than good. However, she can't help herself and looks at Seki, realizing that he's stopped eating the wieners, so Rumi smiles, confusing her friends on what kind of crack is in her lunch. Rumi feels happy that the wieners survived after Seki got tired of eating them, but her happiness is cut short as Seki hands the wieners to his friends for them to eat. Rumi looks over and starts glitching, seeing the wieners getting massacred by 2 dudes. She starts crying and her friends now worry about her, but Seki suddenly pulls out another lunchbox, so Rumi looks over to see bunnies cut apples and begs Seki to leave them alone. In art class, the teacher instructs them to carve, and their Goto usually attends the class feeling happy as she gets to sit next to Rumi. But this time, Rumi is absent after she gets a cold. Goto looks at Seki and feels empathy towards him for being lonely by not having Rumi with him. However, Seki pulls out a miniature sumo ring and 2 paper wrestlers, confusing Goto. Seki starts playing with it in the middle of class, and after her inspection, Goto assumes that Seki is in a dry spell with Rumi, hence why he's doing dumb class. Then, one of the paper wrestlers loses, so Seki pulls out a tape and uses it like a bandage on the wrestler, confusing Goto, who's seeing Seki's nonsense for the first time. Goto thinks Rumi and Seki have broken up, hence why Rumi is absent and at home, crying her eyes out while Seki is playing this game to fill the void in his heart. Then Seki goes for round 2, and this time the wrestler is against a robot, and while he plays, Goto is invested fully in seeing him play, where the wrestler loses and Seki puts him in more bandages. Goto starts tweaking, not understanding what's happening, and assumes that the bandaged wrestler resembles Seki himself and his wounded heart. Then in round 3, the wrestler goes against a giant robot, and Goto interprets the robot as the colossal problem that Seki is fighting inside. In the ring, the robot keeps pushing the wrestler back into a corner, and Goto starts agonizing while imagining this as Seki losing his battle. The 2 of them both start tweaking, with Seki going nuts and Goto too, but she accidentally starts kicking the chair in front of her and ruins Seki's game, making the wrestler win. Seki is in shock, looks to the chair, and thinks that Rumi is there haunting him via Bluetooth from home. He starts panicking, but Goto sees it as Seki slowly falling in love with Rumi again and starts crying seeing him put his game away as a sign that he hasn't given up with Rumi and will fight to get back together. The next day, Goto meets Rumi, who is now healthy, and she thinks it's because Seki has reconciled with her and claps her cheeks to the point her disease goes away. At a school seminar, the teacher introduces the danger of alcohol, but Seki, like usual, doesn't care, and he pulls out the game of shogi while Rumi watches him. Suddenly, he pulls out a chess piece and sets up a chess set to face the show reset, confusing Rumi on what kind of Queen's Gambit nonsense is going on. Rumi starts thinking logically about which side is more powerful and if the rules even allow it, but suddenly, the light turns off and the seminar starts, so Rumi decides to pay attention and thinks that the darkness will make it difficult for Seki to play. However, Seki starts playing and the shogi pawns start falling to the floor. Rumi realizes that the battle is happening in the darkness and Team Shogi is being forced into a corner, making Rumi confused about why Team Shogi is not attacking back. Team Chess continues demolishing the shogi pieces, and after inspection, Rumi understands that it's because the cheese pieces are black, and Team Shogi is unable to see them. Rumi imagines Team Chess as like ninjas who lurk in the dark, while Team Shogi are warriors who can't see the ninjas surrounding them. While Seki is smiling like a donut, Rumi feels annoyed that he's playing dirty like this, so Rumi evens up the odds by pulling out her eraser, aiming it at Team Chess to hit them. However, Rumi struggles as it's too dark for her to aim, and she's frustrated that she can't help Team Shogi. Rumi tries to think hard about how can she help them, and she looks down and sees the fallen shogi pawns. Meanwhile, in the battle, Team Shogi only has the king left while Team Chess surrounds him, and just as Seki attacks, one of the shogi pawns pops up using instant transmission, confusing Seki. He eats the pawn away, but more shogi pawns pull up, scaring Seki like he's seeing a ghost, even though it's actually Rumi who's pulling the strings. Seki starts panicking, but Rumi keeps putting more pawns on his table, scaring him while she laughs behind him, scheming that Rumi will keep haunting him with the dead shogi pawns Seki yeeted. Seki starts glitching out of fear of the resurrected soldiers, puts away the pawns, and starts praying to the gods, wishing he won't be punished for his war crimes. Rumi smiles deviously, thinking karma is a bitch, and feels that the job is done. But suddenly her skirt is stuck under Seki's chair and she can't get out of it, and not want to get caught like a freak under a dude's table, proving that karma is indeed a bitch. The next day in class, Rumi looks at Seki and gets shocked seeing him wearing a blindfold like he's part of 50 Shades. Seki looks down and sees a faceless, flat potato head called Fukuorai. Seki starts playing the game blindly and ends up with a weird-looking human gremlin, which makes Rumi laugh and gets the whole class attention, almost getting her in trouble. She gets annoyed for almost getting embarrassed and wonders why Seki is playing Fukuorai without an audience, calling him an idiot. However, she can't help but look and see that Seki got it perfectly, and praises him for being amazing at the game, but then Seki starts gesturing something before grabbing multiple different hairs off his table. He starts using the force to feel which hair is which, and picks the Elvis Presley special for his gremlin, but he changes his mind and Rumi, who's spectating, supports him to go a different style. Seki almost changes his mind but goes back with the Elvis swag, which is a crime against fashion. Suddenly, the teacher wants to delete the blackboard and Rumi quickly takes notes. Meanwhile, Seki is channeling his aura into a hair choice and Rumi is in shock, just realizing the Elvis gremlin now has a family of ugly gremlins, impressing Rumi on how Seki is creating it blindfolded. However, Rumi is still icky seeing the daddy looking like a punk, but Seki suddenly changes his hair, making him look like a responsible father. Rumi is fully invested in seeing Seki play and starts fangirling, seeing the baby standing up, giving her a warm feeling. Then, Seki starts feeling out accessories and gives the baby a candy before slowly adding things to the family like it's a happy family photo of gremlins, but Rumi realizes that the family growing distant and hopes that it has no bad implications. However, the family changes drastically with the kid now rocking the Elvis, following a bad path after the parents had some issues, and Rumi starts panicking, finding a way to save them. Then, she puts her book in her mouth, quietly gets closer, and starts blowing her mouth, hitting Seki on his hand, making him freeze and start glitching out of fear. But Rumi smiles as the family suddenly becomes closer after a blow from her almighty throat creates a happy ending. In the next period, the NPC teacher spreads some printouts, but because it's not enough, Seki and Rumi share a printout together. Rumi starts worrying that Seki might do something weird and hopes that he will study normally, but Seki looks pissed and Rumi finds out that it's because he can't get toys from his bag since their desks are combined. Rumi starts laughing at Seki out of pity, but he looks over at her, gets annoyed, and pulls out some playing cards. Seki starts shuffling and shows Rumi a diamond ace before putting them down and showing the same card as a magic trick. Rumi is annoyed but looks over to Seki smiling brightly, and it scares her, thinking he's off the shrooms. Then Seki continues inviting her for his magic trick, so she ignores him to make him stop. Seki keeps trying to show Rumi magic tricks and smiles, but Rumi just ignores him and studies. Suddenly, Rumi opens her paper and a card is there due to Seki's magic trick. Scaring her, however, she refuses to show him a fun reaction and shows him she's angry by folding his card, making Seki cry. That Maida stands up to read and the same folded card is stuck on his sweet cheeks, and Seki smiles while waiting for Rumi to show a reaction. She starts tweaking and struggling to not show a reaction, so she tries to reason with herself and looks at the folded card, knowing it's the previously folded ace, and there are two of them. Rumi reaches peace and knows she can't be surprised, but folds when Seki opens the folded card, revealing it's a different card. Seki goes full David Blaine and Rumi can't hold back her surprise, and it pleases Seki. The next day, Seki starts wearing glasses, shocking Rumi. She rewinds the morning and remembers that Seki didn't wear glasses, making her wonder what happened. Then, Seki pulls out a mirror and starts posing, worrying that he looks like a wizard, shocking Rumi that this idiot cares about his looks. It amuses Rumi to see Seki getting in different poses, but Seki suddenly pulls out a crapload of glasses, surprising Rumi. Then Seki tries out the glasses to look for the right one, and Rumi decides to just ignore him. However, she can't help but watch Seki pick his glasses, praising the ones that make him look good. Rumi folds, seeing Seki in the special nerd glasses, and looks away whenever he looks at her, not being able to handle the nerdy rees. Then Seki tries on more glasses, and Rumi still feels that the nerdy supreme is his best style. It annoys Rumi that Seki doesn't pick the nerdy special, and she uses her aura to make him pick the right glasses, pushing him past all the other glasses. He wears it and Rumi starts fangirling hard, wanting to gobble his nerdy glizzy. Rumi starts blushing, feeling accomplished, but on the next day, Seki doesn't wear glasses anymore, and it angers Rumi that she lost her midnight flicking fun material. In the next period, Seki works on a flipbook, which doesn't have any relation to the class, and it annoys Rumi. She looks over and sees a sample of what Seki is drawing, telling a whole story, and she wants to see more. She gets distracted and quickly goes back to studying. Suddenly, Seki pulls out a voice recorder and starts recording himself to follow the book like an anime voice actor. He has a serious face and Rumi wonders what's on his mind, but suddenly he stops and gets happy, and it makes Rumi curious about what he made. At lunch break, Rumi sneaks into Seki's bag to see what he made, and she finds out that Seki has made a full animation on a flipbook. Better than 7 deadly frames, but it's filled with his voice in the song. Rumi is so impressed by his work that she can see it in real life, and it touches her heart. The next day, the teachers call out Rumi and tell her she looks troubled lately and wants to snitch on Seki, but is also scared that Seki might get scolded. Suddenly, she hears teachers talk about a personal belonging inspection and imagines them exposing Seki's toys, which makes her happy. Then in class, Seki plays with the robots while Rumi is happy to see them back, but she remembers about the inspection and imagines Octopus getting yeeted to the floor. Suddenly, the teacher starts the inspection and Rumi tells Seki to hurry and hide his toys. Rumi starts panicking as the teacher gets close while Seki is busy pulling out his toys and hiding them in a box before lowering them outside the window like a criminal. Rumi sees the robots are still there, starts panicking, and begs Seki to hide them, so Seki uses his lunchbox and fits 2 of them, leaving Optimus exposed. Rumi closes her eyes while the teacher is inspecting Seki, but the teacher finds nothing as Optimus is hanging on a chair hiding. The teacher declares Seki to be clean, moves on to Rumi, and finds her Rule 34 for a CD, borrowed from Ashino while Seki starts mocking her, pissing Rumi off. The teacher asks her if anything is on her mind, and she accidentally mentions the robot family, making the teacher panic, thinking it's her family. He takes away the CD and leaves Rumi frustrated, and she blames Seki for this. Later at home, Rumi's mom calls her out and scolds her that the teacher will be coming for a home visit, thinking that she has family issues. If you watched this anime recap and made it to the end, comment "Minding your own business is the best business." If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video